Everything is a Remix has the best shirts on the internet. We've got a brand new shop, new colors, new shipping, and lady styles. See the link below. Remix. To copy, transform, and combine existing materials to produce something new. Remixing is everywhere you look. TikTok is remixing. You do your version of dance moves, you lip sync to someone else's audio, you duet, literally.
Soon may the wellerman come to bring us sugar and tea and rum. One day when the tonguing is done, we'll take our leave and go.
Memes are remixing. You take a photo, you repurpose it, then someone else tries it, then there's a flood of everyone trying out combinations, including remixing other memes. When you take something old and use it in something new, that's remixing. It might seem like just copying, but it's actually something much more. Remixing can empower you to be more creative.
Dancing in my room, swaying my feet.
Remixing allows us to make music without playing instruments, to create software without coding, to create bigger and more complex ideas out of smaller and simpler ideas. You don't need expensive tools to remix, you don't need a distributor, you don't even need skills or good judgment. Everybody can remix, and everybody does. From our songs and movies and memes, to the technologies that transform our lives, to the way we make sense of reality, to the evolution of life itself, everything is definitely a remix. To explain, let's start in the Bronx in 1972. In the early 70s in New York City, a new technique for creating music starts to form. At parties, DJs are looping the dancers' favorite parts of songs.
So he plays the same record on 2 decks. While the Get Down plays on 1, he cues the same part on 2.
An early pioneer is DJ Kool Herc, who extends instrumental breaks by switching back and forth between 2 copies of the same record. And he has partners, MCs, who sometimes speak rhythmically over these beats, just like many black entertainers have been doing for a long time. Boom, rap music is born and starts to grow. And in the last few decades of the 20th century, it will transform popular music and the popular imagination. Sylvia Robinson spots this new trend and assembles a team to record an actual rap song. She creates a group called the Sugar Hill Gang. They copy the rhythm from Chic's Good Times and score rap's first hit, Rapper's Delight.
What you hear is not a test, I'm rapping to the beat. And me, the groove, and my friends are gonna try to move your feet.
Grandmaster Flash takes Kool Herc's simple idea, refines it, and turns it into a new art. He records the first music created with turntables. This technique of taking old bits of music and using it in new music becomes known as sampling. At first, rap samples are mostly R&B, soul, and funk, lots of James Brown. But soon, artists are sampling different sorts of music, like rock. Run DMC and producer Rick Rubin sample the Knack's My Sharona in It's Tricky.
It's tricky to rock around, that's right, on time is tricky.
A Tribe Called Quest uses the bass line from Lou Reed's Walk on the Wild Side in Can I Kick It?
Can I kick it?
Yes, you can.
Can I kick it?
Yes, you can.
Can I kick it?
The sampling gets more and more eclectic and more complex. Public Enemy uses non-musical sounds, speeches, sound effects, noise. And the Beastie Boys and producers the Dust Brothers unite hundreds of samples in their album Paul's Boutique. Sampling spreads outside hip-hop into some of the biggest pop hits. Sly and the Family Stone gets sampled in Janet Jackson's Rhythm Nation. riff by Tom Tom Club is used in Mariah Carey's Fantasy.
Oh, my,
The group Len samples a long-forgotten disco hit by Andrea True Connection in Steal My Sunshine.
I was lying on the grass of Sunday morning of last week, indulging in my self-defeat.
And Britney Spears' Toxic uses a highly modified sample from an 80s Bollywood musical. But one of the most famous and least recognizable samples in pop is in Daft Punk's One More Time, which slices up a song by Eddie Johns. Firstly, 3 parts are isolated. Then the song gets slowed down. The second part then loops 3 times, then the first part plays once. This little sequence then loops 2 more times, then the third part loops 7.5 times, then the first part plays. One more time. This whole sequence loops throughout the song. Eddie Johns' song becomes a Daft Punk song by just chopping it up, stretching it, and rearranging the parts. Sampling reached its pinnacle with the Avalanche's album Since I Left You, which merges perhaps thousands of samples into a swirl of sound unlike anything else.
That boy needs therapy. Psychosomatic.
The album is layered together from distorted bits of obscure songs, sketch comedy, and movie dialogue.
It is the opinion of the entire staff that Dexter is criminally insane.
The title track loops and speeds up a variety of forgotten songs from the 60s and 70s, then slices up, pitch shifts, and rearranges a vocal into an entirely new melody.
Since I met you, I found the world so new. Since I met you, I found the world so new.
And finally, sampling leaves behind the 20th century and the world of CDs and vinyl and physical media and takes to an explosively growing new medium, the internet. Greg Gillis's project Girl Talk challenges the entire concept of musical ownership with a series of flagrantly illegal mashup albums that can be downloaded for free. Each song is composed entirely of uncleared samples by popular artists. Hip-hop began at block parties in the Bronx and grew to dominate popular music, and along with it, so did sampling and so did remixing. Remixing is now a core element of music. Even when artists aren't remixing, they're often curating and manipulating sound in a similar kind of way. But remixing didn't begin with hip-hop. Earlier musicians were remixing too. They couldn't sample, but they could still copy. Just like rap is a remix, so is rock. After the breakup of the band The Yardbirds, their virtuoso guitarist, Jimmy Page, starts a new group. He recruits John Paul Jones, Robert Plant, and John Bonham to form Led Zeppelin. They play a new kind of incredibly loud electric blues, and within just a few years, they're the biggest band on the planet. And yet, Led Zeppelin are dogged by controversy. Many critics and peers label them as rip-offs. The case goes like this. Dazed and Confused features different lyrics, but is clearly an uncredited cover of the same titled song by Jake Holmes. Holmes files suit over 40 years later in 2010. A settlement is reached, and Holmes' name is finally added to the credits.
Been dazed and confused for so long, it's not true.
I'm dazed and confused, hanging on by a thread.
The opening and closing sections of Bring It On Home are lifted from a tune by Willie Dixon entitled, not coincidentally, Bring It On Home.
Got my ticket, got that load. I done bought my ticket, I got my load.
However, the middle section of Bring It On Home is a Zeppelin original. The iconic guitar riff of Whole Lotta Love is the creation of Jimmy Page, but Robert Plant lifts some of the lyrics from Willie Dixon's You Need Love.
Way down inside, honey, you need it.
Way down inside, woman, you need love.
The Lemon Song is also mostly a Zeppelin original, but includes more copied lyrics, this time from Howlin' Wolf's Killin' Floor.
I should have quit you long time ago.
I should have quit you a long time ago.
And the most famous example is Zeppelin's biggest hit, Stairway to Heaven, the opening of which resembles Spirit's Taurus. A battle is waged in court for years, and Zeppelin finally prevails in 2020, when the song is found to not infringe copyright. Zeppelin toured with Spirit in 1968, 3 years before Stairway was released. In his sworn testimony, Jimmy Page claims he never heard Taurus before writing Stairway. Led Zeppelin made mistakes, but they were also just doing what artists do, copying from others, transforming these ideas, and combining them with other ideas. Hip-hop artists were doing the same thing a decade later, and they too would sometimes get in trouble for failing to credit other artists. Hip-hop artists would sample actual recordings, while rock artists would recreate melodies, chords, arrangements, and more. Chic's Good Times, one of the early major hip-hop samples, was itself synthesized from various influences throughout culture, like the funk and jazz of the 70s and the glamorous, sophisticated aesthetic of Roxy music.
Jump up, bubble up, what's in store? Love is the drug and I need to score.
Good Times' famous bass line was inspired by the one from Kool and the Gang's Hollywood Swingin'.
This is a song I wish I had written. So what do? I go, well, damn, if I wrote Hollywood Swingin', it would go like this. And then I write Good Times. That goes, and I stay on that note.
Good Times, like every other song, remixes the musical ideas of others. It was once rare for musicians to admit they copy, but it's become common. Like Dave Grohl has spoken openly about copying beats from disco bands when he was the drummer in Nirvana.
I pulled so much stuff from the Gap Band and Cameo and Tony Thompson on every one of those songs. All that. That's old. It's old disco. That's all it is.
And when a controversy emerged over Olivia Rodrigo's song Brutal, perhaps copying an Elvis Costello riff, Costello said this was fine, and he did it too. It's how rock and roll works. You take the broken pieces of another thrill and make a brand new toy. Musician and DJ Questlove has said that the DNA of every song lies in another song. All creative ideas are derivative of another. But past musicians have certainly known this as well. The folk singer Odetta refused to condemn Bob Dylan for copying from her, and instead said this copying is a form of tradition.
Because he stole liberally.
No. We call it folk music. We call it, what do we call it? We don't call it stealing.
Appropriation?
Well, we could, but we don't. It is passing on the folk tradition. That influence was just like a key that opened up something that was of his own stuff. So I can't even take credit for that. I can't take credit for how he heard something.
All musicians are connected. And these connections cross continents and oceans and decades and centuries. They transcend the barriers that divide people and even unite the living and the dead, whose creativity lives on through us. When we create, we often seem alone, but we are in fact together. And yet, copying is complicated. One of the most boring things about popular culture is all the relentless copying. there's very clearly many, many, many bad ways to copy. And that's where we're headed in part 2. One last thing. The most consistently inventive and prolific musical remixer of the 21st century has to be provocateur, genius, idiot, and self-described crazy person, Kanye West. Kanye West was a standout talent early in his career, but what he was doing was often fairly simple, like he loved to speed up soul vocals.
I spit it through the wire, man.
This style got dubbed chipmunk soul. Other songs were sort of like hip-hop covers of classic soul songs.
I gotta testify, come up in the spot looking extra fly. For the day I die, I'm a tough sky.
West is also brilliant at spotting untapped potential. The Mystery of Iniquity is nobody's favorite Lauryn Hill song, but All Falls Down makes you think it is.
When it all falls down,
It all falls down. And when it falls down, who you gonna call now?
And Kanye West has really diverse tastes, like he samples the jazz-influenced rock of Steely Dan.
Did you realize that you were a champion in their eyes?
Yes, I did. So I packed it up and brought it back to the crib. Just a little something, show you how we live. Everybody want it, but it ain't that.
I'm up in the woods.
And he samples the indie songwriter Bon Iver, a non-obvious choice for hip-hop.
I'm lost in the world, but now
One of Kanye's most innovative tracks doesn't contain prominent samples, but it's still very much a remix. It actually began as a remix of a Young Jeezy song, and it retains that feel.
all I know is the sky's blue and the coupe is new.
The vocal is sung by Connie Mitchell, and it's chopped up like a sample. West then incorporates an ominous rock-like chord progression modeled on Led Zeppelin. Kanye West also isn't shy about copying techniques. Auto-tune as an effect first appeared in a song by Cher, but it was later turned into an entire style by T-Pain.
Baby girl, what's your name? Let me talk to you, let me buy you a drink.
And West uses it extensively in his influential and divisive album 808s and Heartbreak,
How could you be so heartless?
which altered the course of hip-hop for better and or for worse. West can also take combinations that sound like bad ideas, like combining dancehall reggae with Nina Simone, and the results aren't just good, they're transcendent.
I don't blame you much for wanting to be free.
I just wanted you to know.
By the way, both these sources are themselves remixes. The Sister Nancy song is based on a sample, and the Nina Simone song is a cover.
I don't blame you much for wanting to be free. I just wanted you to know.
When you look at Kanye West's songwriting credits, you can see how his creativity happens. The songwriting for Famous looks like movie credits. Kanye West is a lot like a film director. His songs are built by teams. He has countless collaborators, and they in turn bring their own samples. One of West's most famous samples actually comes from collaborator Symbolic One, who found this super obscure song on a DJ message board. A big part of what's brilliant about Kanye West is the people he channels. And this clearly doesn't create work that is less creative, it creates work that is more creative.
Well, the years start coming and they don't stop coming. Fed to the rules and I hit the ground running. Didn't make sense not to live for fun. Your brain gets smart, but your head gets dumb. So much to do, so much to see, so what's wrong with it?
Hi, welcome back to Everything is a Remix, the remix of Everything is a Remix. I originally did this series from 2010 to 2012, and it completely changed my life. I traveled around the world, I spoke at TED and Netflix and Google and Hulu and NYU, terrifying stuff that I never imagined I would do. And somehow I've managed to remain an independent creator since then. I put all 4 parts of the original series together into a single video for the first time in 2015. I gave it a little polish, and that's the definitive version of the original. But time has marched on, and Everything is a Remix needs a full upgrade. I'm doing the whole series all over again in a mostly new way. I am pumped to be back doing this, and if you enjoyed this first episode, you ain't seen nothing yet. It's just going to get better from here. If you're excited about this project and you want to help make it happen, there's a bunch of different ways you can help out. Come back me on Patreon. This really helps me to dedicate time to this project. You can head over to the shop and buy one of the best shirts on the internet. We have new styles, new colors, new shipping. It's all new. You can subscribe to my mailing list to keep up with me. And of course, subscribe here on YouTube, share, like, comment, and hit that notification bell. Thank you for watching the whole video. Look at you. You are clearly a superior human being. Thank you to my patrons. Thank you to my subscribers. Thank you to my Discord members. Thank you to everybody who lent a little hand to help make this happen. And thank you to the amazing site whosampled.com and its community. This is how I sourced pretty much all of these samples. And thank you also to the site tracklib.com. I used some of their visuals in the Daft Punk and Avalanches sections. And also thank you to the site knowyourmeme.com, which is how I untangled the sources of many of the memes. Part 2 of the new Everything is a Remix will take a while, but it'll be worth the wait. Welcome back, everybody. Enjoy the ride, and I will see you soon.
I said hip hop, I hip it to the hip hop. You don't stop the rock to the bang bang boogie. Say up, jump the boogie to the rhythm of the boogie.